gonna see more things about Python functions. So default parameter value. So Python allows function arguments to have default values. If the function is called without the argument, the argument gets its default value. So let's say this is an example. If we call the function without the argument, it uses the default value. Here's the example. So greeting and then parameter name and then equal to Bob. So Bob is here our default value. And then the function will print hello name. So if we call the function without any parameters or any arguments, it will use Bob as name and will return hello Bob. However, if we call the function with a supplied argument, let's say Alice, and then now name will be Alice. Well, it'll no more be the default value Bob. Okay, here we go. Hello Alice. And then next, what happens if you call a function in your program? So what is the program flow? So the calling program suspends the execution at the point of the call. Then the formal parameters of the function get assigned to the values supplied by the actual parameters in the call. In other words, by the arguments. And the body of the function is executed. And when done, the control returns to the point just after where the function was called. So in other words, a function call actually temporarily stops the execution of the current program, and the control is taken by the function, and then all of the lines, all of the commands in the function will be executed, and when done, the control is passed back to the main program that was called, that called the function. All right, so let's talk about scope of local variables. Each function is its own little program. So the variables used inside of a function are local to that function, even if they happen to have the same name as variables that appear inside of another function. So the only way for a function to see a variable from another function is for that variable to be passed as a parameter. All right, so passing by reference versus passing by value. Python is set to pass all parameters by value. The formal parameters of a function only receive the values of the actual parameters. The function does not have access to the variable that holds the actual parameter. However, if the value of the variable is a mutable object, such as a list, then changes to the state of the object will be visible to the calling program. So let's see this in the editor. First, we're gonna give a default value to our name parameter here. Our name default value will be Bob. Okay, so anytime we call the function, we can either pass an argument as a name, or we could use the default value. So let's run this program. And then, as I showed earlier, I can call greeting with no arguments basically, which means we're ready to use the default name, will be Bob. Okay. However, if I say greeting with Alice, and then here you go, hello Alice. Okay. So in our labs and examples, I don't expect you to use any kind of default value for the parameter. However, that's just something good to know. Okay, so next thing is, if you notice that x has been defined as a parameter for square, as well as double, as well as average, sum, div, and all multiple places. However, each function is its own program, which means each of these x's are actually the scope only valid within this function. So they are not the same values or names, even though they're the same. Okay, they're not the same variables, even though if their names are the same. So example could be is this. If I define an x value here, let's say x is 10. Then I can call square with my x variable. Notice that this x variable only lives here. When I call the square with x, I'm actually passing 10. I'm not passing x. I'm passing the value of x, which is 10, to this local x variable here. They are not the same variables per se. So to prove that, I'm going to try this on the double. I'm going to receive x. Then I'm going to say x is equal to x times 2. So I'm basically changing the value of this x, and I'm going to return x. Okay. So, all right. So I have a global variable x here that is 10. Then I'm going to call double with x. So notice what happens when you call double. It actually change the value of x to 20 and then return. However, which x? So my x in my global scope is still 10. So it did not affect the this local x. Change in the local x did not affect my global x here. Okay. As again, you notice here, you have an r here and r here, although the names are the same. They are two separate variables because they live in separate functions. There's no way those two can communicate with each other. And the same with the max functions. Okay, so this a and this a can live at the same time because they live in two different functions.